Okay, and we're live. Looks like the sound is good. Let's go ahead and get this shared a few places, give everybody a chance to get here. Going to be talking about lucid dreaming today, lucid dreaming techniques. Got some updates on some of the techniques I have described over the last little while. Okay, we'll share that. Here to do that from the phone once it's here. Okay, so I'll go over here, share it from here. Hey, Kira, good to see you. We're going to be talking about lucid dreaming tonight, and I have some reports. Well, I have at least one update on a live that I attempted. Or my brain went a little silly on me. I haven't even started drinking yet. On a experimental technique that I tried a while back. Hey, Black Unigriffin, glad to see you. Let me just get this shared here like I was gonna do. Though we barely need to, there's already a bunch of us here. Okay, let's see. Groups. It is important that I share it to all the groups of people that are watching for us. Okay. All right. So, like I said, tonight we're going to be talking about lucid dreams. We're going to be starting off with a sunrise cran raz sour. It's another local company, I believe. Haven't had this before. We'll see how it goes. Not bad. Not great, but not bad. Certainly drinkable. Anyways, like I said, we're going to be talking about lucid dreaming. I am waiting for a few more people that should show up soon. Yeah. Anyways, I don't really have many personal updates to start with today. I figured out how to turn off the slow mode. I think I've had a slow mode on in the chat. I didn't know that was there, but we've gotten that fixed. Let's see, what else? Okay, well, I mean, we might as well go ahead and get started for the most part, I suppose. Now, lucid dreaming, we'll start out with a story. I'll start out with a story about my own experiences with lucid dreaming. I'm what you would call a natural lucid dreamer, and that I started at a very young age before I'd ever heard of before I'd ever really heard of the idea. I had a few dreams before that where I was kind of aware I was dreaming, but around the age of 6, I had a dream that I was being chased. Hey, Warden. I had a dream that I was being chased by a werewolf through a funhouse of mirrors. And, for a 6-year-old, that's a fairly scary dream. And I'm running away from this werewolf all over this maze of mirrors, trying to get away from it. And then finally, it gets me cornered. And I'm seeing this werewolf, and it's coming towards me, and it's on all the other mirrors, and it's real scary. And then, right about then, I realize that I'm dreaming. I'm like, okay, this has to be a dream. This can't be real. So I was like, okay, well, if it's a dream, then I can do anything I want. And I turned into a silver bullet. And then I chased the werewolf all around the funhouse for the rest of the dream as a silver bullet, like like a cartoon bullet. Like you watch the old cartoons where Elmer Fudd or somebody shoots at Bugs Bunny or whatever, and a bullet just chases after him and makes decisions and all kinds of stuff. It was like that, just this silver bullet chasing a werewolf all around the funhouse. And then after that, like I just kind of learned to feel dreams. Like I could just kind of tell when I was dreaming. But there's more to it than that. I mean, hey, Romstead. I keep getting partially lucid, but I struggle to jump to the conclusion I'm dreaming. But my mind is very active and aware. Yes, that is a very important part of the whole process, is just getting active and aware in the dream, being able to make decisions. Some people watch their dreams as mostly an observer, and some of my dreams are like that, but only ones where like I'm getting what I call downloads, which is like basically instead of getting a dream, I've been sent a bunch of information that I'm processing. So those types of dreams tend to be very non-lucid. I'm not sure what the word for a non-lucid dream is, but it should have a term. If there isn't one, we should come up with one. Yeah. So that being said, I have had to learn to induce lucid dreams more and more. And one of the things that I found works best for me is kinetic memory, sensory stuff. Like, for example, I talk about dream staff. This really helps me, and it might be something you want to try. It doesn't have to be a dream staff. That's simply what I chose to use. But what it needs to be is something. I find that if dream walkers hack into my dreams and try to boss me around, instantly makes me know I'm dreaming. Yes, we're gonna get to that actually, about being interrupted by spirits. I've got quite the story about that actually, which we'll see if I tell. Once I've had a few more drinks in me, I'll probably tell. I just have to make sure that I keep it YouTube friendly. But I had a rather startling experience with someone accidentally astral projecting to me while I was asleep. But like I said, we'll get to that. Yes, it was another person that came into my dream as well. But anyways, like I said, we'll get to that one. I want to get at least a beer and a half in first. Four stages of dreams: non-SEM dreams, semi-lucid dreams, fully that rarely happens, and clairvoyant ones that are more a screenshot of the next day. Yeah. I certainly had a lot of like, especially when I was younger, I'd have a lot of deja vu dreams. And I had a lot of dreams back then about stuff recent that's, well, not super recent, but about stuff that happened as an adult from when I was a kid. Hey, Felix. Oh yeah, the waking up over and over again in a dream. I've had that one a few times. Um, Back when I used to experience, oh my gosh, sleep paralysis, which would happen to me more often at the end of really heavy meditation than it would at the end of a dream cycle. That would be that was a real repetitive thing at the end of a meditation cycle. When I was trying to come out, I'd come out and think I was out, and then boom, I'm back in, and then I come out and think I'm awake, and boom, I'm back in. That happened to me a lot when I was first astral projecting really heavily. And that's actually a good indication that you have gotten outside of your body, because you're trying what's happening there, where you're trying to remake that connection. And when you're getting the sleep paralysis, what you're doing is you're trying to get back in your body and something's kind of bugging out. You're not quite linking up. So that's how come you keep having these dreams that you're awake, because you're trying to do that. You're trying to link back. You're trying to get back into the awareness of your body, and it's just not quite connecting. Yeah, dream incubation. Yeah, I've had quite a few things. An interesting aspect that I've had with the astral combat in dreams is I'm able to wake up from a dream, not at this point, actually wake up from a dream, prepare myself, think about what I'm going to do, and go back into the dream. And that's quite useful. Um, that is a more of a dream incubation technique, I suppose, like what you're discussing there, than an actual um, lucid dreaming technique. Oh my. Anyways, as I was saying, for me, what helped a lot was some kind of sense memory. With me, that was the dream staff, which I think I have here. That's right there. That's not obviously my original dream staff, because this was when I was like 8, 9 years old, somewhere around there when I first started doing that. But the idea is to have something to take with you to sleep that's not a normal object that you would have in your sleep. Like if you sleep with a teddy bear a lot, just telling your teddy bear, just saying that your teddy bear is going to remind you of your sleep and you're taking it with you. I mean, it might work, but it's not the technique I'm talking about. Yeah. Um, it's something that you can hold on to, and that's reminding you that you're taking it into the dream. And that part of the intention is to have a lucid dream. So you're feeling this object that you're holding on to when you go to sleep. And your mind is telling you that through this object, you're going to remember that you were dreaming. And especially with the dream staff, that has been very potent for me. I I think that it's gonna work for a lot of people to have a sense memory. I've had quite a few people that have tried it say that it's worked, but the thing about that is most of the people that I've actually gotten feedback from using the dream staff, they're all people that already knew how to lucid dream. Yes. Um, the easiest method I use to break sleep paralysis to imagine myself as a brilliant white light, stand my ground, and insist that nothing has power over me. Indeed. Um, what I do with the sleep paralysis and how I finally broke it was okay. Yeah, I've got a video on that, but I can definitely explain more on it in a moment. In fact, I'll grab the one I use now. Um, what was I gonna say? Oh, the sleep paralysis. What I found, and I know I'm constantly harping on the personal sigil, but what got me out of the sleep paralysis was using my personal sigil and visualizing it pushing out of me and into the very tip of my finger. And then using that force of my will to bend my finger. And as soon as you get one little bit to move, boom, you're free. You've reconnected with your body, whether there's anything trying to block it or not. 'Cause that's the thing about sleep paralysis. Sometimes there is stuff trying to prevent you from linking back up with your body properly for feeding purposes, for all kinds of different things. And then sometimes, which was the case with me, it was simply slight misalignment on return. And really, either way, the technique I described would work, but so would what you're talking about glowing bright and strengthening yourself. Ooh, night terrors. Yeah, those can be rough. Um, that's not something I have a lot of personal experience with. That's in I haven't had a lot myself, but I do think that proper shielding and um, preparation might help. We can get into that in a moment, but I did say we talked about the dream stuff next. This is like I said, one of the earliest techniques I ever used. You got to imagine yourself as powerful and fight back. Yes, that's certainly a huge part of it. But night terrors, I don't know. I haven't experienced them myself, so I don't have a whole lot of firsthand information to say there. So dream staff. I like to have one because I use it for so many other things. I talk about this in the sorcery self defense playlist a lot. I like to have it go right up to my hip. A night terror is when you wake up and you're still experiencing the dream. Like you're still experiencing the nightmare. You're actually still seeing the stuff from your dream, if I understand it correctly. And so, I mean, a big part of that, I would think, is to learn to control the nightmares and prevent the nightmare in the first place so that if you do wake up still seeing the dream, it's going to be something different. More of a jump scare. All right. So with the dream staff, you I prefer to go into the Karen position, which means I cross my arms over my chest like this, and then I lay straight back with my legs crossed as well, and the staff across my body. And I go to sleep with the intent that the staff is going to go with me into my dreams. And at that point, it's like I said, a big part of that is the sense memory of it. But also, once you have the staff in your dream, now you've brought in a physical object with you to as a representation of something into the astral world. And there's a lot more we can do with that once we get to the dream platform and all that. I'm going to start talking. I'm going to be bringing up the dream staff again. Mm. Let me get in on that. Is it true if you become an occultist, you lose mind and soul? I lost my mind before I became an occultist. No, honestly, there's a lot of propaganda around these types of things and a lot of fear. And it's just people drumming up fear to keep us from looking into the hidden things, looking into hidden knowledge. There are lots of people that, for one reason or another, don't want us doing this kind of stuff. Some because they simply don't believe it and tell you, oh, you're crazy. Others because they do believe and don't want us to have that power. And others because, well, they prefer that we worship their God rather than realizing and understanding that we should be worshiping, but we shouldn't be worshiping anything, but we should be honoring all things, but also our own free will, which gonna sound all religious for a moment. To me, that's the only true salvation. Yes, becoming sovereign. Thoughts on sleep paralysis? We were just talking about that a bit. And in my experience, because sleep paralysis is definitely something I used to experience. For me, it mostly happened after an astral projection rather than a lucid dream or sleeping. But what it is when your astral form and your body are failing to align properly as you return to it. And this can be caused either by simply an improper entry, or it can be caused by an outside force, like someone trying to hag you or something like that. And that's what they're doing is they're creating when they do that, they're creating that disruption, and your form is not syncing back up. Now, the way to overpower this is to either draw on power and make yourself strong enough that you kind of force your way in, and like the way that Black Unigriffin described about making yourself white light and power, and none can control me, and you will get back into your body that way, whether something's fighting you or not. Or same thing, you can use a personal sigil. This is my technique, and I focus my personal sigil into my body through my will, into the tip of my right finger, and then use that will to get my finger to move. And if your finger moves, you're out. And a personal sigil is a sigil made up from the letters of your magical name, or whatever, however you want to create the sigil. But it's a sigil that is designed to represent you and your form and your will. Okay, so like I said, there's the dream staff. And we're gonna get into that again when we talk about the dream platforms here in a bit, and I'm going to talk about it with we talk about flying in your dreams. I have quite a bit of stories to talk about there with the flying in your dreams. But um getting lucid in the first place. Uh it doesn't have to be a staff. It can be anything that you're holding, anything you want to take with you into a dream. It could be a ring. It could be a special ring. In fact, I'm making one for Felix as we speak. That's the point, is that they will only put it on when they want to have a lucid dream. So it's a sense memory technique. It's almost a form of self hypnosis by creating a trigger. And I've gone even farther with this. In fact, I'll pull up maybe the first video I pinned today. Let's see. Let me pull that up real quick. Along the same line, I created a save button a while ago. We're going to be talking about that. It's one of the things I wanted to talk about today and give some more updates on that. We'll pin that one for a while. Oh, this thing's in the way. It won't let me read. I'm currently using my artist signature as my personal sigil. Excellent. I think that is a very wise choice. So the video that I just pinned is about, I don't know if pinning videos is the best thing. I want y'all leaving me to go watch my videos. But anyways, that video there is about creating a save button. And this was a really effective technique. I haven't done it in a while because my dream recall has been poor, or because my dream recall hasn't been as poor. But I was really struggling with dream recall at the time, so I decided I would create a save button, like on a video game. And in order to get myself to remember, I was tying a bit of string around my finger, like they'll tie some string on your finger so you'll remember the thing. But I tied some string on my finger and started using that to remember that I could push a save button in the dream. And I don't have to use the string anymore now, but I haven't used a save button in a long time either because my dream recall has been good. But that's essentially what it is you simply just envision a button, create the button with your mind, push the button with the intent that this is creating a save point. And it took a few times for it to actually work. Like the first time that I tried it, and I guess it did work, but it had weird side effects for a while, actually, because even that first time I tried it, and then I had a dream that I was with this like bank heisting crew, and we'd gotten through all the bank heist, and we're at the safe vault trying to figure out the combination, and I decided to myself, this would be a good time to push the save button. So I manifested the save button and I pushed it, and it saved the dream. I remember everything that happened up to that point, but it also opened the safe vault. Just boop, vault popped right open. And then I used it several times after that. Ironically, I don't really remember much about the dreams, but I did at the time. Yeah. Like the memories have kind of faded over time. But by pushing the save button, it helped me to remember the dream long enough to wake up. And that, now that I think about it, might be an interesting thing to be able to do, like, at the end of your lifetime, to help remember the memories from this life, especially if we connect that to the dream platform. So yeah, the kinetic memory thing is huge. Just something that's touching you to remind about what you're supposed to be doing. There have been techniques where people would simply just tell yourselves repeatedly, I'm going to have a lucid dream. I'm going to have a lucid dream as they go to sleep. This has been documented to be really effective. Most documented effective technique for having a dream is to set an alarm for about halfway through the night. And then when the alarm goes off, you wake up, tell yourself you're going to have a lucid dream, and you go back to sleep. But you want then that alarm to be waking you up in about an hour. It's going to wake you up. You're going to do the same thing for the last few hours of your sleep. Just kind of repeat this cycle. And that has been proven to be very effective with lucid dreams. The only technique that I have given other people that has a 100% success rate so far is another kinetic dream technique, and that is I make these necklaces. That's a single pearl inside of a little bottle, and it's a spell essentially, but it's also based on that same idea of the kinetic memory. Write it on paper over and over. Yeah, that's a cool idea. Actually, write down, I'm going to have a lucid dream. But yeah, the only technique that I have used personally for other people that has had a 100% success rate are the dream necklaces. Everyone I've given one of those to so far has had a lucid dream while wearing the necklace. In fact, I made one for my mother that was I don't know who has that. Oh, that's right, it broke. But anyways, I made one for her that was all pearls with black leather and a little pouch, and then she would actually write what she wanted to dream about, and then put it in the pouch, put the pouch on, and have the dream she wanted. Well, it was also lucid. Oh, I wish I hadn't thought about that. Anyways, shadow people. Um, yes, most of the shadow people I have seen have not been associated with my own sleep. I have quite a few videos on the Hat Man and the shadow people. It is what's interesting about them is um they seem to really frequent drug dens. Like, I've unfortunately in my life lived next to quite a few crack houses because of the where cheap rent was when I was younger. Man, do they seem to move around those places. But that's not the only place. Um, they're Yeah, phantoms is a good word for them. They're things that exist kind of in the margins of the dream in the waking world. That's You could say they're another etheric being, but they're not the same as like elves or jinn or any of the other things that actually have etheric bodies. They're Well, I have a video on it, and I'm actually, because of some of the stuff that I have done with shadow work, and I'm not talking about Jungian shadow work, but actual lack of light shadow work. Um, I'm real careful about what I say about the shadow people and the Hat Man, because I got to be careful of what oaths. They're a very secretive bunch. So yeah, I'm not gonna go into a lot on that. I do have a video on that, but actually, the thing I ought to have pinned. Let's see if I can get to my link tree easily without wasting a bunch of time. Yeah, so what was I saying? NyQuil was way better back in the 90s. I've heard that. Like they changed the formula or something to make it less able to be, well, in their words, abused. Copy. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and link this. This is just a thing to my link tree. You can get to all my books or anything that I talk about there. If you want to tip me or what the heck? Did I already pin it? Yep. Okay. If you want to give me a tip on any of the various Cash App, PayPal, etc., that's where you would do that. You can also find ways to contact me on there. It's got my email if you just want to contact me, or if you want to purchase any of my services. But for the most part, neither Shadow People or the Hat Man are really dangerous or mean harm. That's what I will say about those for now. I mean, I can't say the stuff they help you do is right hand, quote unquote, right hand path, but they're not necessarily there to cause harm. They're not entirely predatory and can be dealt with. Anyways, like I said, I don't want to spend a lot of time on that particular subject. Not where I'd hate to make a slip of the tongue and say something I'd agreed not to. Okay, so let's see. We were talking about kinetic techniques. I mentioned the lucid dreaming necklaces that I've made. That's the only thing I've ever had 100% success rate with. But I actually do still offer those. If you want to contact me, we'd have to figure out the shipping on it. Like I said, you can contact me through the link tree. Anyone that's interested in those. But really anything that you take with you to sleep can do that sense memory. Like I said, the technique that's been documented as having the most effect is waking yourself up repeatedly and telling yourself you're going to have a lucid dream. Yeah, I mean, some of them are certainly dangerous. I'm not saying that there aren't ones that aren't predatory, but most of the time they're nothing to be afraid of. They really don't even want to be noticed. Yeah, I mean, I see them from time to time as well. There's if you've been seeing them that long, you might want to look up on my channel. I have some videos on that you might want to check out after the live because they are a very interesting bunch. And working with them can be rewarding in its way, but you do have to remember that even though they don't want to be noticed, they also do want to fascinate. They don't want to be seen directly. Not that they don't want to be noticed. They don't want to be seen directly. They're part of the mystery. And yeah, they can be worked with to very for very effective things. It can be quite powerful, but they do want to fascinate you. So you have to be very careful. That's why I talk about wearing the gloves when you do any kind of actual shadow work so that because shadow cling to you in a way. Yeah. Yeah, please do. If that's something that you've been experiencing a lot with, I think you would benefit from watching those. And actually, I can go ahead and get a link. Well, I'll try to remember by the end of the night to give you a link to the play. Well, no, let's just go ahead and do that since I'm thinking about it. I'm kind of in between topics right now, anyways. Let's see. Content. I think I have a playlist on most of it. Shadow. I was trying to search play. Oh, I'm so silly sometimes. Searched in the wrong place. And now the computer's freezing. So we'll get back to that. Oh, there we go. Okay. Maybe. Title. Oh, that's probably not the right word. I'm going to get at least. Maybe I don't have a playlist. Oh, geez, there's going to be a million things with shadow. Well, there's a couple of them, but this is the one where I talk about tab. This is the longest one where I actually talk about shadow people and the shadow realm and all the stuff's going on there. I'm not going to pin that though. Just give it to you there. You can come back and find it later. Maybe just queue it up for after the live. Anyways, so like I said, the most documented technique is just an alarm clock wake you up every first time. You want to go about 3 hours and then every hour after that. And I think that Black Griffin is probably right about the idea of writing it down is going to be more effective than just saying it. Maybe even writing it down and then holding on to that, making a necklace with a pouch and write it down and put it in there. That would probably be the most effective. I would suggest adding a pearl. There's something about pearls and the clarity, because pearls aren't necessarily associated by most people with lucid dreaming, but with lucidity. So with clarity, with purity, yeah? Which is funny because it's an adjective inside of an oyster. I don't know where they got these ideas. But what I do know is that pearls help keep one in a lucid state when they're dreaming and kind of help with mental clarity in general, really. So, yeah. Kind of odd, really, because nowadays we think of pearls and we just think clutching one's pearls aghast. Maybe they're trying to get some mental clarity back as they clutch their pearls. I don't know. I do know that is one of the traditional things that it is seen is to be clarity and purity. But what I do know is that it's been very effective with like I said, I've had 100% success rate. Every person I have given one of those necklaces to with a pearl in it, told them to wear it while they went to sleep, has had a lucid dream, at least one. Maybe. Oh, yeah, that's the other reason this is exactly my hip size. Because that's how long a shillelagh is supposed to be from your foot to your hip. And it doesn't have a very good knot at the end, but this is actually made from wild rosewood, from a wild rose bush that grew in the pond near my house. Started when I was a boy. A couple years ago, they sadly cut it down, but this massive piece of wild rose wood was part of that. It's actually one of my most treasured possessions. It's a stick. But of course, one of my most treasured possessions is a stick. Look who we're talking about here. Okay. So other powerful dreaming techniques. Lucid dreaming techniques before we get into the whole flight thing. Let's see. There are a lot. One that I have suggested many times and has been effective for many people, but I can't say it's 100% success rate, is, especially since I've told so many people that I haven't never got feedback on, is actually a dream tattoo, which ironically I usually suggest putting in the same place that my personal sigil is with my new tattoo here. And what a dream tattoo is, and actually that's what I use as my personal sigil. So that's actually I hadn't even thought about that part of this whole thing. That just kind of happened. But anyways, a dream tattoo is you mark your astral form, as in you don't actually have a tattoo, but you draw one on energetically by simply like tracing on your wrist whatever image you want. Usually I would recommend a feather. I don't know why I chose a feather, but most of the people I've told to do this, I said to use a red feather. So maybe use a red feather. A lot of times I say stuff. Part of me knows why. So it's better. So it might be best just to go with exactly what I said. But either way, imagine an image placed on your wrist, and then you go throughout your day. And whenever anything odd happens, look down at your wrist to see if there's a feather there. If you're awake, you won't see anything because it's not a physical tattoo. But in that moment, when you're like, okay, am I sleeping? Is this a dream? If it is a dream, when you look down at your wrist, you'll see the tattoo. And that tells you you're asleep. And boom, you've got proof positive that I am definitely dreaming. And there you go. Once you have realized you were dreaming, you do have to understand that you do have to already understand that once you are dreaming that you can take control. Because if you don't already have that concept locked in to your mind, you might still struggle. And typically when this happens, you're probably going to be in a dream inside of your inner mental realm, or other words, inside of your brain. Oh yeah. That stuff is, I've tried that stuff. And yes, it's very good for lucid dreams. It's also really good for seeing with your eyes closed. Yes, this is a good point, Romstead. If you haven't really internalized the idea, then you might look at it in a dream and not see the tattoo. But that's if you haven't internalized the idea enough. So you do want to keep at it with that technique and you probably want to do the sigil more than once. But the more you're looking at it, the more often you're checking your wrist, the more internalized the idea becomes. So the more often you check your wrist, the more likely that when you check it in a dream, that it'll be there. So that technique does take, like I said, it takes locking the idea in, but that takes dedication, that takes repetition, that takes remembering to look at your wrist a lot throughout the day and see if the sigil is there or the feather is there. When I see an apple, I am dreaming. Yes, this is another technique that people have talked about, but the apple would need to be in a strange place because it's not every time you see an apple, right? In fact, they make fun of that on a American Dad episode where the boy thinks he's in a dream because he sees a bouncing blue ball, and then they mess with him. But it is a good technique. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The well, you're the only one who knows who I'm talking about, but I feel like the being that I'm making in the cauldron there, or bringing into fruition. Oh, we were just on the verge of that, Kira. And actually, since I'm not going to say his name yet, we're just going to skip ahead to that. So that's what I was getting at. Um, lucid dreaming, and a lot of times, especially where the ones where really weird stuff is happening, what you what you are experiencing is a dream that is in your own head. Yeah. And once you've taken control there, it's pretty easy to get outside. But like I say, most dreams, especially the ones where like, all the classic things, like you try to turn on the lights and they don't work. The tattoo sigil should be along those same lines. Not a guarantee that you're inside your head, but it's a good indication. Same with like, your phone that folds when you try to use it. That's what happens to me. Other people have different things, but to me, if I'm in a inside my head dream and I pull out my phone and try to use it, that sucker's gonna bend. It's just gonna go, "Brrrr." And that's a guarantee. Obviously phones don't do that in real life, but okay. So first of all, let's talk about some of the signs before we talk about getting in or outside of your head. There is the inner world, yeah? Your dream creates an or your brain creates an inner mental world. It's an entire landscape. It's an entire reality that is inside your mind. And this is something that once you realize you're in control, you're completely in control. Like I said, this is, like your classic, like they have in sitcoms or whatever. You go inside somebody's head and there's this whole scape in there and world. That is a thing. And this is your dream world. And it's not always going to be the exact same. There's different levels of it, different things, but there's an inner world one way or the other. How cohesive it is differs from person to person. But there, once you are in control and realize you are dreaming, you can change the landscape. You can make the people do whatever you want them to do because you're inside of a holodeck. You're inside of a thing where you're the one that makes the rules and you just do whatever. And that's one of the key things where you can tell if you're in an astral, if you're in a inside your own head or somewhere else, is you can control things. You can you can go in reverse and everything will reverse and everything will move forward if you fast forward if you want it to, or you can just suddenly change things. Now, these are all good indications that you were inside your own head if you can completely control everything. So, if you can't do that and you're lucid, yeah. See, and this is the indication. Things like that is an indication that you're probably in your own mind. Um, and that level of degree can change there. But once we get outside of our head, now you shouldn't be able to control other beings. You can't make things do what you want them to once you're outside of your head. You can kind of change the scenery. You can definitely do a lot of things, and flight and powers and stuff like that can be achieved outside of one's own head. But control of just being able to completely alter the scenery at will or make someone that's already existing there go in reverse without resistance. These are signs that you're on the outside. Script a safe word to come home to your body. See, now there's a good way to help avoid the sleep paralysis right there. That's a great way to help avoid the sleep paralysis. Okay, so yes, astral traveling. So that's what we're going to get to next. So now that I've described how to tell the difference, um, let's talk about how to get from one to the other. And there's a few more lucid dreaming techniques. We'll wind up coming back to that. We'll wind up coming back to that a few times because it's important, key part of the episode. But we're gonna go ahead and advance forwards for a bit here. So as I was saying, a little scatterbrained today. How do we get out of our own head and into the larger astral realm? Which is it's important that our dream platform, by the way, be outside of our own head. Once we'll get to that. The easiest way is to simply decide to. This can be very easy. It's just as easy as going, all right, I'm out of here and I want to go to, well, you're going to need a location. I want to go to the astral realm, even, and just, and if you know how to fly, this is easy. You just fly off to it, and you can imagine that you are going to this new place, and then it's actually good to visualize a crossing point. Yeah. This is an important part of it. You want to actually visualize a point where you're crossing out of your world and into the shared reality of the actual mental realm and astral plane. Another way to do this is to open a door. Like, if you're in control of your dream, you should be able to just create a door, and you can even put a mark on the door of whatever realm it is that you're trying to get to. Open the door, step through, and once again, you need to remember, because now the door is the metaphor, because that's actually the important part, is the understanding and decision that I am crossing that barrier. I am crossing that barrier from my inner mental world out into the outer shared reality. And you have to have something that's going to be a metaphor for that. Like I say, for me, a lot of times I just fly up into the sky and go out. I just imagine myself and wherever I'm wanting to go. Most of the time for me, I'm headed to the S1 sigil, the Roadhouse, which is essentially another version of the S1 sigil, or I'm headed straight for the All Things / the Swirly or the Big Spin, as the audience will often call it, or the Horde. I'm beginning to understand the difference between those things. The audience is all perceptions, because we all make it to the all thing eventually. We're all part of the all thing. Eventually, we are outside of that moment perceiving. There's a moment where everyone's perceiving all at once, and that is the audience. Moment outside of moments. So, do I have a dreaming sigil? The S1 sigil is definitely a dreaming sigil. Can I put images in here? Don't remember. Yeah, there you go. Astral travel by realizing you was dreaming on a forest path. Yeah, see, and then as you were going down that path, you must have accepted or at some point walked past that barrier. And really, that's essentially all there is to it. Oh, grow light just turned off. I really do need to do something more about the lighting in here. I used to struggle with the vibration part because then I would hear, possibly feel like an earthquake. No images on YouTube. Yeah, yeah, I know. I was gonna do a well, I could bring it up somewhere else and then do and then do a share. Let's see. I might be able to just put it into Facebook. I was hoping there. Okay, let's try that again. The S1 project. There we are. I forgot I created this page. I got a lot of Facebook pages. Okay, so I must have some. I must have I must have a good photo of it here somewhere in the S1 project page itself. Okay, let's see. Let's full screen that. Oh, that's not what I wanted. What am I doing here? Okay, that's not working. Right. I get out of full screen so I can get back to you guys. There we are. Oh yeah, okay. I get what you're talking about, the vibration with the vibration thing. That took me a minute. Oh man, there was an earthquake in Utah once, and I'm laying there sleeping, and I hadn't had any. The dream wasn't anything particularly like, I wasn't having a particularly interesting dream in any way. But I'm laying there sleeping, and all of a sudden I feel my whole bed just go, and honestly, my first thought was, "Oh man, have I fucked up? I pissed off something big now." I thought sure it was some kind of goddamn spirit had gotten a hold of me, was shaking my whole mattress. When I opened my eyes and saw the whole room was shaking and it was just an earthquake, I was actually so relieved. I was like, "Oh, oh god, it's just an earthquake." Yeah, I thought I was boned. I thought I was boned. I was like, "Oh no, somebody's got my number, man." Shaking my whole bed. So yeah, as far as getting to the astral in the first place from the lucid dreaming, from a lucid dream, it's as pretty much that simple. Okay, let's see if I can. I want to get this right before I try to share pages. All of a sudden, everything's going weird over here. That's not the one I want. Let's see if that one's any bigger. Okay. Why is it doing that? Oh, because it's giving me S1 project alerts. Okay. I'm not very good with computers if you guys haven't caught on to that yet. Okay. So let's see. Share screen. Facebook. Share. Okay, we were talking about dreaming sigils. And I've brought up the S1 sigil many times. This is the sigil here. Yeah. I originally provided it with to other people, other members of Sorcerer Guild. It's a way to contact the beings I now call the Horde, or excuse me, the audience. But this is literally an S over a one. It's the symbol I use to mark the location at the edge of the nothing when I at the edge of the nothing when I finally return to that point. I first hit the edge of the nothing. Oh, I think I have to stay over there for you to be able to see it. I'm not sure about that. Sharing this tab. Yeah, okay. So I think you can see that. Okay, here we go. That's fine. Okay. So, as I was saying, when I was a was I 9? When I was about 9 years old, I had a hernia operation. Yes, 8 or 9, either way. And the damn doctors, I'm the neurodivergent child that I am. They tell me that I've got this. They give me this nitrous oxide mask, and they tell me to put it over my head, over my face, and it's very important that this mask stay on. And they explain to me what it's going to do. So, I got a hernia operation. They're cutting on my crotch area. I'm a little boy. I'm very concerned with this. So I make damn sure that when I pass out, my hand ain't gonna fall away and it holds the mask on. So that's what happens. And they're cutting away, doing their thing, when suddenly I flatlined because I propped my arm and OD'd on the goddamn anesthesia. For me, it came out like this. I'm dreaming, like I'm going to sleep, and they all start spinning all crazy like, and then I'm unconscious. And then suddenly I'm not asleep anymore. I'm on the edge of the nothing. Like I don't my mind conceptualizes it as like this flat ray. But even that's something. It was nothing. And somehow in that moment I knew what to do, and like, because I've been there before, I guess. And they I don't know why I said they, but I knew that anything I thought was gonna happen. Okay, you can't think about anything. You need your mom. And then apparently my mom tried to storm the operating room screaming her baby needs her. And it's like that's my mom. Anyways, she tried to storm the operating room, but I came out of it, right? And then the anesthesia was cherry flavored. I'm telling the story while I got this sigil up here. Yeah, see, that's all you're supposed to see with the anesthesia is just black. The nitrous oxide, you just, but that's not all that happened. I want like they OD'd me on the damn stuff, and suddenly I was, and anyways, I feel like I don't need to be sharing this sigil the whole time. Let's we'll come back to that in a moment. I was a little ahead of myself. So we we and it's interesting that I keep using a plural form when I'm trying to talk about that moment. But anyways, um what am I trying to say? So it was cherry flavored anesthesia. And later on in life, because like I kept trying to meditate to get back to that moment from that day after that, you know, I was a pretty matter of fact child in a lot of ways, but I knew that I had died. The part that messed with me is by then I had already started to kind of, I'd already started my path in Christianity that I took on by myself, and my dad was very unhappy about. So the fact that I didn't see a bright light in God and all that stuff was the part that kind of confused me at the moment, at the time, because I had this duality of belief. I had all this stuff my parents had taught me, or my dad, and like that family, whatever you want to call that. And then I had this Christian belief that I had taken on. And, anyways, I didn't see nothing of either one of those things. I literally saw nothing. I didn't see a turtle. I didn't see a bright light. I didn't see nobody by my damn self. So that kind of confused me at the time, but I tried to get back to that moment. That was part of the reason. Immediately started trying to meditate to get back to that moment. And finally, when I was 16, I smoked a cherry flavored cigarette. Back when you could have cherry flavored cigarettes, fuckers. Anyways, that cherry flavored smoke did a sense memory thing. And I finally made it back to that place, to that moment. And when I did, I marked it with this sigil right here. S1, Society of One, is what that stood for in my mind at the time. And so that's what I used to mark that split, that space, is this S with a 1. And I mean, I had already made it up as Society of One. It was this idea that like there was lots of people that could be connected to a society, even though they were all loners. I almost called it the loner sigil, and then it would have looked exactly like the LS sigil, but I didn't. I did the S1 instead. But meditating on this sigil when you go to sleep can take you to that space, and it's been refined since then to be a spot where we can, well, no harm can come to anyone at that location. It's a space where you cannot be pulled from. It's a space where you can, even if you were trapped somewhere else on the astral, if you imagined that symbol, you can pull yourself there. And from there, you can go anywhere you need to go. In fact, at the end of this life, if you want to get out of this reality, that's the quickest way. Just go there, because it's on the very edge of this reality, the very cusp of the nothing. From there, you can go anywhere. From there, you can create anything. And you can make contact with the audience or the horde. Is that the people who are in your dreams, or those folks are the horde? Perhaps. Um, the audience is, like I said, it's literally everyone. We're all part of the audience. Eventually, we all make it there eventually. Everything that perceives eventually becomes part of the audience. That's part of the reason we are all equal, is because in the end, we're all part of the audience. And there's a moment where everybody, but in that moment, there are factions. And the horde is a particular faction of the audience, to which I suppose, oh, yes, to which I owe my, I don't know if O is the right word. It is the faction to which I am connected. I am definitely a member of the horde. Okay, so now we're just going to a Lone Tree cider. It's actually a higher alcohol content, so I will need to be mindful of that. But anyways, I bet that's back when I had the Christian stuff, was a little mind-blowing. For most of you, probably didn't expect me to have had a Christian era, but I did. Took it up on my own. My father wasn't he certainly wasn't pleased. Um, and that lasted from 5, 6 years old till I was 15, and around the first time I smoked this for the first time and realized I couldn't have that duality of belief anymore. I mean, like, I kept trying to change all my magic stuff that I was doing. I changed the names of it. I was a mad scientist. I was making chemicals instead of potions. And, meditation I figured was just psychology. And I came up with excuses and reasons. And then I realized that wasn't, I smoked some weed, started realizing that wasn't possible. Then I got high and read the Bible one night. And I realized that I disagreed, that I could not support that evil. I could not support that idea of ownership over other beings. Okay, what are you saying? I have been having these dreams in which I'm traveling through tunnels, airports, shopping malls, train stations, trains, etc. These people keep showing up lately after I put the S1 sigil in my dream reality shifting journal and placed it under my pillow. They often seem very, very Generation X and hacker like. Yeah, quite possibly. And they mess with AI and machines everywhere and bend or break rules. Yeah, I mean, I can't say for sure, but yeah, it kind of sounds like them. They're basically a portion of the audience that how would I put it? They're the ones that make sure that the one law of the universe, well, no, not even the one, no, that's not true. They do some enforcement of the law of reciprocity, because the first law, there's no need to enforce. I mean, there's no neither one are actually. Well, the first thing is thou shalt groove. Yeah, and that doesn't need to be enforced because either you groove or you don't. If you don't groove, if you don't manage to find a way to move and to continue, then you aren't able to until you find a way to do so. And considering once you perceive you never leave, eventually you'll figure it out. Yeah, I mean, not exactly. I mean, it's certainly not a time thing because time is, I don't know. I don't know what happens if you mess with the time in that way. I would have to, I mean, I've done some a little bit of time wiggling, but like there's, yeah, I mean, they do help with the law of reciprocity, but it's more about keeping things moving. Yeah. Keeping things going because, well, the audience, once we're all at that point, it's our most power. It's the point we're at our highest, most powerful point, but it's also a point where the only thing we can, what we're doing is watching, right? So, in order to keep the whole thing moving, in order to keep reality flowing, in order to keep the groove moving, we have to be entertaining. We have to be something worth watching. We have to be something that keeps the audience's attention, and they help that continue. But also, they are a faction which believes that part of what makes keeps things interesting is free will. If we can give everyone in every reality as much potential to do as they want, as they will, without causing undue limitations on the others around them from being able to do what they want, we're going to have the most interesting reality possible. So that's what it kind of comes down to, these factions, right? Is what do we think is the most entertaining? And the Horde is a part of the audience that thinks the most entertaining thing is to make sure that everybody has as much free will as possible to do whatever they're going to do. We like an open-ended episode. Okay. Something just dropped way over there. I don't know if you could hear that on the mic. Huh. I mean, just the sign that it is becoming a proper temple grounds, whatever that was. But it is time for me to have my first intermission. I'll be back in just a moment. Oh, glad to see you, by the way, Max. Okay. So, where were we then? Let's see. I'd like to switch gears back to lucid dreaming techniques. One of the ones we haven't covered yet is outside interference. Okay. Like I said, in a moment, I'll tell a story, and it might make a few people concerned about how they. Anyways, we'll get to that. A little bit of a content warning coming up, I suppose. So, what was I saying? So, outside interference. Someone mentioned a while ago about bringing your servitors into your dreams. This is a perfect example of an outside interference. Create a servitor whose purpose is to go into your dream and wake you up and bring you into a conscious state, or Sorry, a lucid state, not wake you up. You don't want him to come into your dream and wake you up. That's gonna be a pain in the butt. That's gonna be a problem after a while, right? No. You want to create a servitor. I mean, you can actually just do a sigil even. That's just, a sigil of I have a lucid dream, stick that under your pillow. That could work. I haven't tried that technique myself. This I have tried. This I have seen be effective for lots of people. You make a servitor whose purpose is to be activated when you go to sleep, and then when you are dreaming, come into your dream and tell you that you were dreaming and bring you into a lucid state. This is a very effective technique. I've seen it work lots of times. I've done it myself. You can also, if you don't feel confident with your ability to create servitors, you can petition gods. There are different gods or spirits you can speak to or just make a deal with, and that, I mean, this is a real easy deal. It's, just about any spirit can do that. So it doesn't even matter who you make a deal with. It's just someone that you can make a deal with. Any spirit you have a connection with should be able to enter your dream and be like, "Hey, dude, you're dreaming. Check it out. You can go do other stuff now." Any spirit you already have a rapport with should be able to do this. Now, this, like I said, I was gonna wait till I was about a drink and a half in before I told this story, but I have a story on this particular front, and it's there's some parables in this one. This is the bit where there's a bit of a content warning. This does involve me being um a- awoken by unexpected sexual activity. So, I just, in case that's going to freak anybody out, now is the time to say that little bit of content warning here. Okay, so um, I'm I'm a bit of a figure, I get to know quite a few people. Yes, Warden Mark. So, anyways, so what happens is this person that I've had some contact with over Facebook. I'm not going to name anybody's name. But part of the parable here is why you should make sure to put up barriers if you don't want things to happen, just a small protection around the room. I had some limited connection with this person. There's someone I actually sent a gift to at some point. And I think that's what made the level of connection. But I knew this person was into me. So one night I'm laying there sleeping, and suddenly I feel this tightening of my underwear, and then penetration from the back part. And this brings me immediately lucid, and I go floating up towards the ceiling to escape it. And suddenly there's this person running around the room, all freaking out, embarrassed as heck, like, "Ah, ah, ah, ah," running around. "Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh." And mostly I just remember all their hair. They had all this hair, and they're like, "Ah, ah, ah," and I'm like floating above them in a totally lucid state. And then they take off, and I identified who they were. But I got a very big confirmation about who it was because they contacted me the next day. It's like, "Hey, I had this experience." And so there's two parables here. One, if people are fixate thinking about you a lot, it is a good idea, if you're not wanting that to happen, to push some kind of shield to prevent that from happening. Yeah, this is me finding out that, people are going to think about me that way, because I don't, I mean, I don't what am I supposed to say here? I don't know. I didn't expect that. There've been quite a few remarks about me on this, channel along that nature that I didn't expect. You know? I'm like, "Oh, okay." I mean, I like compliments. We all like compliments, right? But anyways, I don't wanna dwell on that. Point is, that happened, and there's 2 parables there. Block yourself from them kind of things if you don't want that kind of thing to happen, with some filters. And the other one, if you are thinking about somebody, maybe try to make sure that you're not projecting to them, or at least try to get some kind of like astral consent if you are. So, anyways, hope I didn't freak too many people out. That was certainly brought me lucid. Certainly brought me lucid. Now, I wasn't, I didn't do it on purpose. I didn't feel I wasn't upset about it, just really surprised. Like, "Oh my gosh, what is going on?" And running around. Oh my goodness. What is going on here? Yeah. So like I said, that happened. Um, but the whole outside experience or outside interference is very effective. Like I say, the one I've known people doing the most is a servitor, a tulpa. Like, these are all words for the same thing, really. I mean, I know I even have videos where I talk about the difference between a sulpa and a servitor and a golem. But these are all just for communication purposes, right? That's all these labels mean. You don't want to let the title or category of the creature get in the way of what you're trying to create. Anyways, um yes, exactly. Like I said, any spirit, any spirit you have a decent enough relationship with that you would trust them to come into your dream in the first place. You would trust them enough to invite them to come into your dreams, can help you with this. This is one of the easiest things for a spirit to do. And it's also why it's really easy to make a servitor to do it, because it's a very simple technique. It's very effective. Okay. So, um, let's see. Other dream techniques, Black Unigriffin and Warden Mark. Could they really mess you up if they weren't trustworthy? Um, anyways, I was saying, let me just finish what I was saying. I got sidetracked in the middle of a sentence there, didn't I? Um, like Unigriffin and Warden Mark, I believe, both mentioned binaural beats and what was the other one? I've heard those are great. I have not experienced that much myself. Okay, yes. Could spirits really mess you up in your dreams? Well, the problem can be in the invitation part. If you haven't directly given them permission to enter into your dreams, then you are less vulnerable. It's that permission and invitation part where you're like asking this thing to come into your dreams, and it's a very powerful entity. Now, if you remember, if you can always keep in your mind that you are the absolute sovereign of your inner realm, then no, they can't. In fact, if yeah, I mean, you can't always get the binaural beats. I've wanted to try it, but I've never had. I mean, I guess there's stuff on YouTube that you can try nowadays, but I don't know. I've never had a chance to really check it out. Okay, so anyway, what was I saying? If you remember, if you can keep, if you were able to keep, always keep that in your mind, then no, they can't do much. But because of the psychological implications of allowing them in, yes, they can. They can. That's why if you're going to do this with a spirit, you want it to be one that you have had a lot of you develop rapport with, is one you can trust, one that you know what's going to happen, what they're going to do. You both understand each other's limits and boundaries before you allow them into that space. Now, if you are aware that you are your sovereign and they try to pull some bullshit, they're actually the ones in trouble once they're inside your realm. Yeah. But especially if super powerful ancient beings, it's easy for them to make you forget that. Yeah. All you have to do is truly be able to remember that you are the sovereign of yourself. And if they are in your mental realm, if they are in your dream, you're the one calling the shots. I mean, even you still can't control what they do directly, but you can do anything to them, and they can't control anything if they're not allowed to. So there you go. Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. You have a relationship with this person. Yeah, that Kalatazichi, it is definitely effective. I'm certainly not saying that it isn't. Um, let me see. Let me read your thing one more time. Smoked a few bowls and made the tea. Oh yeah, yeah. If you do both, like you make the tea and then smoke it while you're drinking the tea. And I think I'm allowed to say that without getting demonetized because, as far as I know, it's not illegal anywhere. I also noticed a huge aspect of seeing with my eyes closed. Like I got to the point where didn't really matter if my eyes were open or closed. I could see what was going on around me and move around. And yeah, I went laid down. Yeah, it was pretty effective. I can't. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing it right, but if you go up to Hungry Ghost last comment, Kalia Zakateschichi. It's actually a Mayan herb. It is extremely powerful in its way. It's not like a strong drug. It's not going to cause you euphoria. This isn't anything you want to party on. And it's perfectly legal. But you drink the tea and then smoke a couple. For me, I smoked a couple joints of it. It is quite effective. It was an interesting experience. I mean, legally, I can't say, "Oh, go do that." I suppose, even though all things I just said I practically did. But legally, I can't say that, and I'm not even necessarily saying that. But it was an experience. Mugwort is pretty cool too. Yeah, I've done the exact same thing with mugwort. A lot of those kind of things. I mean, it didn't have the same effect. It didn't have that seeing with my eyes closed effect that the Kalia Zalit, the Mayan or Kalia Zalitichi or whatever didn't have quite that same effect. But it did have its thing. But I've done the exact same thing. Like a lot of those herbs in that category, that seems to be the best way is to ingest them as a tea while you were smoking them at the same time. Yeah, I mean whatever you need to call that source. After my time with Christianity, I really struggle with the word angel. When I realized everything, how everything was and what was going on there, I felt very betrayed. I felt very betrayed. It's also why I can't eat sweet pickles. Because I was very good at certain stuff in the church, and I realized they were only being nice to me suddenly because they found out I was good at those things. At the same moment, I was eating a sweet pickle, and now I can't stand the taste of sweet pickles. It will make me cry. First time I ever ate a sweet pickle. I don't know. It's kind of a weird story. I don't have much to do with magic. Yeah. Well, not by angels necessarily, but by Christianity in general is what I felt betrayed by. And yeah, I've never been able to work with any of that stuff since I decided that I wasn't going to have anything to do with the world I was being groomed to go into. Because I was like, well, everyone in Utah is groomed to become a missionary because that's what they do with the Mormons. But I wasn't a Mormon, never Mormon. But I was Baptist for a while there. And they were grooming me to become a preacher. And as soon as I decided I didn't want nothing to do with all of that, I haven't been able to work with angels since. I don't know why I decided to braid that just then. But anyways, um, so yeah, it all depends on how these things went for each of us. You know, these this is one of the things that I feel like I don't know these particular areas with like once you get out to the astral, it's amazing how different some of our perspectives can be, but then they also have correlations at the same time. Because I'm absolutely positive I'm not completely right. And I hear people saying stuff that isn't that's different, dramatically different from the things that I see in some ways, but then I hear them say other stuff that is dramatically the same. But anyways, I'm gonna do another intermission already apparently, and then I'll come back and we're gonna start talking about flying in dreams. Okay. Okay, so flying in dreams. This for me was a skill I definitely had to develop. Um, Ironically, this is one of them things that I kind of um I don't know if you want to call it an exception to the rule, but I just see there's something odd with the fact that I had to work so hard to be able to fly in my dreams. When considering when I was a child, I was absolutely convinced I could fly. I think I was talking about this in if not last live, the one before that, where I'd read this book as a kid, If Birds Can Fly, I Can Fly. And I was just convinced that I could fly. I was constantly jumping off of stuff, jumping out of trees. There's one time where I was actually on a hill with a like a choke cherry tree just coming out of the side of the hill like that, you know. And I'm like up on the tree here, and my cousin, who was 6 years older than me, so should have known better, tells me, "Hey, I bet if you jump down out of this tree, you could fly a long ways because it's got like a slope like that." And I did. I jumped right down, man. I was convinced. And it's actually, I was super excited. It was awesome because I went flying quite a ways down along the side of that hill until I hit some kind of, I don't know, berry patch or something. I remember it being scratchy. I didn't care much about that kind of stuff when I was a kid. But anyways, I landed in that, jumped up, and was all excited and wanted to do it again. And my cousin wouldn't let me. He's like, "No, come on, we gotta get out of here. You can't do that again." But I've always been convinced that I could fly. Like, I remember being quite frustrated about it. But then it took me quite a bit of trouble in my dreams before I could actually fly. Um, there's some techniques we can describe, but I want to tell the story of how I worked up to that. So, when I first started wanting to fly in my dreams, I couldn't think of a how. Like, I was already having lucid dream, and for some reason I couldn't just it didn't work like that at first. I needed something. And what it wound up being was a swing set. Like you get in a swing set and you swing yourself back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and then you throw yourself off the swing set. That's what I was planning to do. But that's not quite how it worked out. The first time I ever flew in a dream, we got on a swing set, and I had all these. I kind of almost forgot how many of them there were. I used to have all kinds of dream friends that I only saw in dreams. And we can tell a little bit. I can tell. I'll probably tell a little bit more of that story in correlation to the rest of this. But they're actually, yeah, there was like six of them. Anyways, me and my friends, we get on the me and my dream friends, we get on the swing set and swing back and forth, swing back and forth, swing back and forth, and then the whole swing set would fly. And the first time I did that, like I said, I was expecting to like get swing, 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 and then throw myself, but instead the whole swing set came with us. And that worked for a while, but my dream friends weren't all that reliable. I have a couple of dreams where they actually ran off on me when I was in an important situations, and they weren't always there to fly when I needed to fly. So then started trying to make the swing set by myself, and it didn't really work by myself. But what did work, and this is one of the really silly bits, was I would get my butt itself and swing my butt back and forth and then throw my butt. And my butt would fly up over the hill and get me a little ways. And then from there, I started catching on to, like, as I'm swinging my butt, there's this level, there's this plane of energy that you can get up on. And once I figured that out, that was the trick. Yeah, you just gotta get, it's like air pressure. It's like this line of air pressure, and you just, it's force. It's a force in the air. You just let yourself up on it, and it just lifts you up. Yeah. I mean, I have to do that sometimes too, but there's this line. And once you start, like, when you jump and that intention of flying kicks in, I'm would really like, well, I'd love to know if you feel it. If other people are able to notice this too, there's this line of pressure. It's the same line that I feel, well, when I'm it's the same line I feel when I'm with Aunt Sally. I don't know if I should say that on the live. We have talked about Kali Zadichia, but that's legal. Aunt Sally ain't legal in most places. Um, there's this line of pressure that comes over you with that, and it's actually the only time I've ever been in a fist fight with a botanical is that line of fate, that line of whatever it is comes over you. I actually tried to fight against that. Okay, anyways, yeah, I'm getting way off topic. Does it seem 15 to 20 feet up to you? Sometimes it can be, but like you have to kind of get on it and it'll pull you up to it. Like you can kind of bend it or get a hold of it from below it and pull yourself up to it. Bend isn't the right word. Yeah, see, once you get onto this line, that's what you do is you levitate. Oh, I'm getting sidetracked in the story because there is a bit of a story here. So I start throwing my butt, and then I notice this line, and then at about the age of 14, I got up on that first line of it, right? And I managed to really get a hold of it, but then I couldn't get back down for years. For years, I'm having all these dreams where I'm standing. So, no, that first line, I can tell you about where it is. It's about 5.5 feet off the ground because I'm 5.5 feet tall. And I would be stuck in the air at about head height. And every dream I had, I'm a whole body's length up off the ground trying to get down there. And it was a real pain in the butt. Like I had all these dreams where I literally couldn't touch the ground for years. I get in fights with people and I have to kick them in the head. Unless they could fly and get up with me, I couldn't fight them properly. It was weird. And that lasted from like what? Like 13 to 15, 16, somewhere around there. My flying dreams are often like kung fu movies, and I just stride running until I fly. Then I'll fly for a while and I come back down, then onto the top of the roofs. But do you feel like a solid plane in the air when you're gliding? Or do you just kind of, I don't know, like how does that, what is that experience like for you? But yeah, I got stuck up there for a while. And then I finally just learned to be able to get down off of it. And most of my flying dreams, but what I mean is like, is there like, do you feel a line of something that's holding you? Like that you're gliding along? Or is it, I don't know. I just feel light and start flying. Hmm. Okay, so it is it sounds like that is different than this line thing that I'm experiencing. Now, like I've had dreams where people come to me and talk to me of talk come and talk to me about it and tried to explain the air pressure and like how the upward motion is what's keeping me up there. Like that's I guess they mean as reality generates in the dream, it creates a current, and then I'm riding on the line of that current. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's universal, you know. I do know that I can fly in that manner outside of my own mental space. Like I've been out in the full astral realm and flown in that manner. And in fact, that's like I said, we're gonna get back to the dream staff. Um, yeah, like once I get on those lines, I can just kind of levitate up there. Okay. I haven't had a remember dream in so long. It's always gone before I can catch it. Um, I actually had a video that I it's the first pinned thing on here. If you look way back, you'll find it in the chat still, or you can just go to my channel. I have a video called something about save button. Hold on, let me. There it is. Save button. Okay, so Myra, I guess is your name there. This video is actually about how to create a save button in your dreams, and you might find that helpful. Yeah, eventually you can just stay up there. See, that's the part I'm talking about. Like when I get to stay up there, like there's these lines of flow that just exist within the astral realm, and I seem to be able to like get on those lines. And once you're actually on the line, you can stay on it and you can go from one to the other. And after I started using the dream staff again, yeah, actually, that is something I've actually heard other people talk about is getting caught in those currents. It feels like gliding. All right. Yeah, but I've come to think of it, I have heard a few other people talk about being stuck in the currents of it. Trying to remember who it was though. So that's the funny thing about brains, right? It's hard to trust them. It's hard to trust all your memories. Kung Fu Wire Stride. Indeed. Um, so yeah, for me, that's the experience that's how the experience of flying was. But then a few years ago, when I brought this dream staff concept back or brought this dream staff concept into public idea, because this isn't something I learned anywhere. This wasn't something taught to me. This is something I just decided to do because I was having dreams where something was coming at me that was more of a problem than just turning into a silver bullet or whatever it could handle. And the thing kept turning whatever weapons I made in my dreams, kept changing them into other things. And like I try to cut him and a sword and go all loopy. I'm trying to cut him. I tried to shoot him and it would just make dots on him and dream after dream of me fighting this being and nobody could win. Nobody could get anywhere. So finally it's like, all right, that's it. I'm bringing a stick to my dream. And that's where I first did the dream staff actually. Like I'm just taking a stick to dream to my bed tonight. I'm gonna finish this. And it worked. I went to bed with the stick and got into the dream, and I had the stick. And because I had a stick that was a stick in real life, he couldn't turn it into nothing. And I beat the crap out of him with it. Anyways. But then later on in life, as I made the Sorcerer's Guild and started, that stuff within the S1 project, we figured out how we could use the that concept to help people connect to their dream platforms and begin that whole and help with that whole idea. So, what we did, and by this I mean I and other Horde members, that's the we in this sense. I had a beer in front of my mouth. That probably sounded weird. So, I and other Horde members, that's the we in this sense. We provided the concept with the idea that it could be one of the things that when you're creating a astral connection to a physical object in this reality, we're then using that to pull the veil just a little bit closer. So we did recommend drawing that S1 sigil, the same one that I showed you earlier. See if that's still up. I'll pop over to that again for just a second, just for the fun of it. Yeah, so that one there. Actually put that on the dream staff and then went to that and then go to that location or else to your dream platform because basically had dream platforms work even better. Oh man, I'm getting silly here. Hold on. I wanted to leave that. Oh, I don't know how to jump over here with leave that full screen. Anyways, the heck am I trying to say? Slow down with this alcohol a little bit or something. So the S1 project with the dream staffs, I reintroduced this concept to the Sorcerer's Guild for the purpose of all the things I explained earlier, because it works for all those things, and we'll get back to how it works with flight in a moment, because I'm clearly distracted from that. But we connected that to the S1 project by putting the S1 sigil on the dream staff and then using them to go up to the S1 sigil or to your dream platform if you had already created one at that point, and then remanifesting the object and marking the S1 sigil on it again on the astral and the astral manifestation of your dream staff as a material object. And that was something that was designed to help pull the astral and material realms a little bit closer together and therefore provide a thicker etheric realm, which is where magic and all that type of thing comes from, where things like the Jinn and Fey are able to exist, is in that overlap. Yeah. And so creating the dream staff in that way helps create one more little thread in sewing the rift that has been created in our etheric realm. Anyways, we're going to stop sharing that now. Again. Okay, so anyways, once I did that, I then realized I could take my dream staff and stick it up on one of them currents and just woof, and take off on the staff. I've even tried sticking it between my legs like like I'm riding on a witch's broom. But that has been one of the most effective things with flying. I mean, once I'd figured out where that line was, I had kind of pretty much been doing the same thing with just my hands, but it's not like the same handle. It's like when I actually bring my dream staff, which Felix doesn't like me to have it in the bed. So I don't sleep with the dream staff all that often anymore, unless it's an important night and I need the dream staff for something, which is reasonable. I'd rather cuddle with them than a stick, anyways. So fair enough. But I still might need to use it occasionally. But anyways, yeah, it's help me get onto that line of flow. I think it's literally riding on the metaphorical threads that are weaving the moment. If I've understood. I manifest a blanket and then command wind to take me away. I've been had a lot of thoughts about like a magically enchanted blanket. I get like even my little brother had like the special blanket when you were a kid. I feel like there could be some way to carry that concept forward for lucid dreaming and maybe even like portable altar space. I thought a lot on that concept, but I'm not quite there yet. Ever make my own dream catcher. There's a good chance it's one of my ancestors that came up with the concept. Supposedly, it's an Ojibwe thing, and from the same area that I come from, that part of my lineage comes from. But anyways, yeah, and I don't know. Dream catchers can be a very powerful tool, but what they are is a portal. Like your classic dream catcher, because of what people are considering, thinking of when they make it, and the type of knots they use, if you really want to get into it, is it's a filter. It's something that filters out negative things from entering into your space. Well, that is kind of odd. Every dream catcher you've ever had was stolen, lost, or destroyed. Huh. So, you can make them but my point here is that you can make them for lots of other purposes. It doesn't have to be just to prevent bad dreams. They're a filter that filters out what kind of energy is allowed into a space. Awesome. And they can even be used to open up a portal essentially to other types of energies. What they are is a refined form of thread work, like knot work. And, you know, certainly there are those that would say that certain knots do certain things. And I wish I could say that I knew what those knots were. I wish I could say that, but I can't. I don't. Um, you know, my great grandfather said I was supposed to be a Manitou, but a sucker died before he could ever tell me anything. No, just because he died before I was born doesn't mean I've never met the man. But at the same time, I don't know the knots. What I do know from a trial and error and experimentation, Like the bit about portals and the yada yada, that's definitely was passed down. There's lots of remarks in my family about people having dream catchers in their cars, and all kinds of different things. And this is something. This has been a period. This has been a thing of discussion on several occasions. But as far as whatnots, I I had to figure out what a dream catcher, how to tie completely on my own. They wouldn't. I don't know what to say about that, except for that. I guess they wanted to see what I'd come up with. Now they're powerful, powerful thread work. And just like with any thread work, what it really comes down to is what your intent and purpose of the weaving is as you tie the threads. Knowing proper knots is going to help you make a prettier dream catcher. I've learned how to do most of that. I finally just picked one of theirs up and stared at it. Like, all right, how do you do this? I've had enough of this crap. So I just picked one up and stared at it till I could figure out what the heck they were doing. I have an evil aunt too, Warden Mark. She's the person that taught me bad people exist in this world. So I owe her that. She taught me that in a way that, as much as she had ill intentions towards me as well, wasn't able to actually do anything besides affect what other people thought about me. Yeah, yeah, there are. I've watched some of those, you know, since then. But that's how I finally got it. Was I just picked one up and stared at it, worked it out. I apparently need to go do the intermission again. Be back in a moment. Okay, so never do revenge stuff. I completely agree with that. I mean, there have been times where I have done things to people to, I suppose, set an example. But and there definitely been things I had done because I had to stop somebody. But and there have been things I've done to set an example, but I feel like revenge in and of itself is oh shoot. What the heck was the term that I used? Well, revenge, once you do it, go into that intent, you're setting a precedent in the way your reality flows. You're setting an intent that part of it is leaning into the harm that's been caused to you. Yeah. There can be a repaying of a debt because the law of reciprocity allows for such things. But when we get to that obsession of revenge, the damage that was done to you and exacerbating that becomes part of the intent of of the moment. It becomes part of what is going on. So, yes, sometimes you need to repay a debt that is a debt that they did something that caused you harm and you want to repay the debt. But that obsession of revenge is a double-edged sword that can often more serrated on your own end than it is your victims or your villains. You know, that's very true, Black Unigriffin. I'm calling in their comeuppance. You'd be surprised how many people's higher selves actually make a massive change, but others seem to want that punishment. I feel sorry for them. Yeah, sometimes you just point it out. Like you can literally just contact them, make a sigil of who they are, and just be like, present your case to their fuller self. Like, hey, this is what's going on. This is what you're doing in this particular avatar. Stop it. Sometimes that works. It's calling attention to the more aware self. Oh, I forgot that I was still stuck on this. Let's get rid of that. We're done with that for now. Okay. So, anyways, yeah, and just to present it to their subconscious mind and make your case. Because this is a way to deal with, especially some of the people that are appear to be less than your average level of self awareness. And this, I don't feel is like really getting in the way of one's will. This isn't, it's not a compulsion spell because a compulsion spell is when you're doing the opposite of that, when you're doing something to block their fuller self's impulses and trying to find a way to essentially puppeteer them. I don't approve of compulsion spells except for in extreme circumstances. And even then, mm, yeah, sometimes the higher self of that person they have to put in extreme measures to get things back on track. Okay. So, anyways, the last thing we were going to talk about tonight is dream platforms. We've already been on for almost 2.5 hours and just barely getting there now. But that's all right. Look, we've been having a pretty good time. Had quite a bit of useful dialogue about different subjects. And it was dark or dim. I'm not sure what you mean by that. And then you fly higher and it would get lighter. Um, yeah, kind of. I've had quite a few dreams where I was trapped in certain areas and I had to find a way to get out of that area. It was actually kind of a shared area, or a lot of people in a Facebook group I was in, or am in, called Soup. Some of the time, the name changes constantly. Any of you that are in here know what I'm talking about. Know what I'm talking about. But anyways, um, quite a few of us had dreams about the place with the grassy place of grass, and we kept trying to write. We all had dreams about this place and kind of being stuck there. And I kept having dreams where I was rising and trying to get through a barrier, but it wasn't necessarily darker. Kept having to push food through it. Anyways, yeah, dream platforms. So that's something we'll be talking once again about the S1 sigil. So maybe I should have left that up. Let's wonder if I can. No, don't do that. Let's see. You'd think I know how to do these things. There we are. S1. Right, that thing's being silly. Okay. Yes, darkness is quite comfortable. I actually have a story about that as well. Um, I guess I might as well tell another story real quick. No, we'll leave that for another day. So, dream platform. I think the most important thing here first is to describe what a dream platform is. And what a dream platform is a space that is created on the astral plane as your domain, essentially. And there are several ways to create a dream platform. I'm feeling a little like I'm not getting my words quite where I want them to be. So let me gather my thoughts real quick. So, like I said, A dream platform is a space on the astral that one has claimed as one's domain. The easiest way to create a dream platform is starting at the S1 sigil, which is at the edge of the nothing. And like I talked about in the earlier bit, where I was talking about how I created the S1 sigil, it is right on the edge of the nothing. And anything that you imagine or visualize can happen there, just like it can kind of like actually within the very center of your own perceptions, like your own inner mental reality. But this is the edge of potential. This is just as things begin to manifest. If in that space we can weave whatever we want into being, we can create astral space that is our own to claim. And from that, we can make a dream platform. Now, we start with the S1 sigil, but then the rest of it should be connected to some sort of symbol. And for me, I use my personal sigil. And this is a place where we can then also even put our dream staffs when we get to them. Anyways, so once we have either we can weave whatever we want into being from that limitless potential that exists on the edge of the nothing. And we can hook this into our dream platform and create a place that is completely within our will. And I know I'm constantly on about the personal sigil. Somewhere I have a vape here. There we are. Anyways, I should what are you guys talking about over here? I mean, I've been kind of paying attention, but it looks like I feel like I'm missing something here. Okay, we're talking about the things getting lighter. We are all more powerful than we know. There are definitely people that are trying to keep us from knowing the different things. Like I was talking about that earlier. There are those that um, don't believe and just want us to stop acting crazy. And there are those that do believe and want us instead to worship their gods. And there are those that fear. Um, those that fear that power. This is absolutely true. Um, that's why it's important that we continue to create a fuller cohesion to that power. to that, I don't know, power isn't really the right word, to that, create a fuller cohesion, create a deeper layer of the etheric realm, and get the astral and the material realms more properly sewn together, because it increases the potency of this power. And that's why we have things like the S1 project, because for the horde, that makes things more interesting. Yeah. There are other factions that, well, I mean, ultimately, everyone's part of the audience, right? So, suppose, yeah, there are other factions that disagree with the Horde's perception on these things. But, anyways, creating a dream platform helps this along as well, because the dream platform is a spot where we can, yes, afraid of us waking up and drawing more attention to from our fuller selves to this particular reality, because the beings that want us not paying attention, the beings that want us bored, the, are beings that eventually want to get us to see them as greater than us through fear, submission, awe, whatever it takes, right? To get this portion of ourselves to pay attention to them as greater than us, because that gives them sway over the ultimate audience that weaves every moment. Right? There are parts of the audience that don't agree with the idea that everybody having their um full will, being able to do as much as they can, being the most entertaining thing that we can do. And because they are the least of a less popular opinion amongst the full viewership of the audience, they have to do things where they subvert part of people's will. They have to have areas where they try to control parts of the others in the audience that aren't paying full attention. So, what we're trying to do is make this reality more entertaining, make it more interesting, make by giving ourselves more free will. Yeah, this is the aspect where this benefits not just the entire cosmos, but us as individual aspects. Because what we're trying to do is draw more attention of our guardian angel, higher self, fuller self, whatever you want to call it. Draw an aspect of that, our part of the audience, into this particular perception. And that's how we get to weave our will as that particular bit. Because the more our fuller self is able to act through the avatar that we are in this reality is controlled. Okay, I'm getting way hold on. Getting a bit off there. So the the more we are able to draw the attention of our fullest selves, our guardian angel, highest self, whatever you want to call that part of us that is the full part of the audience, is that by being in Oh my gosh. I've lost my mind again. I have a good night, Warden Mark. Okay, what the hell was I trying to say? So, the more attention that is paid to us in our current aspect by the fullest self, the more oomph is given. Yeah. The more power, the more will we have to weave with in our reality. And the less that gap comes becomes between the astral and the material planes, and therefore the more powerful or wider etheric realm we have. And those things that want to keep us from waking up are the same beings that want them not to pay attention. That want our fullest selves not to be paying attention to this reality. That's what waking up is more of our fullest self paying attention to this particular aspect, this particular dimension of all the things that we are perceiving at once. Anyways, um, I hope that made sense. I'm not entirely sure if it did. Um, so perception is unlimited, but attention isn't. Fair question. Like, hmm, I mean, I don't really know the answer to that, but I guess so. I guess it's more like when there's a particular oh, but attention is question mark. So perception is unlimited, but attention is question mark. All right. I thought that was just that is what you typed. I read it as isn't. Anyways. So huh. But attention is oh it's like this, right? You have all these games you're kind of playing at the same time. And there's a game where you're able to do all kinds of stuff and there's interesting things going on. At the same time, you're also playing a game over here where you're stuck and things just aren't really going well and you're not going to spend as much time working on that game unless you're obsessed with beating a particular thing like it's really like oh man I got to beat this puzzle, you know, depending on what it is. If it's just something where you're having to grind to get past a part of the game and there's just nothing interesting even going on, you're less likely to be paying to spend as much of your energy and effort on that. Yeah, like our fuller selves can only pay attention so hard to anything. Well, I think it's more it's not a lack of ability, but a lack of actual interest. They're trying to make the reality boring. So that there's so much other stuff going on in other realities that are flashy and cool that they're not paying attention. You get less interested in this one where there's not even a good puzzle. There's just beating your head against a wall over and over again. That's what the reality, that's the sensation they're trying to create in this reality, where it's just no matter what you do, you can't win. What they were trying. Yeah, we're finally getting back the other way. I don't want to leave this on a bummer, right? We are, but that is true. It doesn't seem like it right now. Like the opposite of flood the zone. Kind of. Yeah. It's the spot. Well, I mean, the zone's being flooded already, right? If there's a infinite option of multiverses, we're not able to understand the kind of perception that can even look at all those things at the same time. So there's definitely a disconnect here, a Dunning-Kruger effect on us even trying to understand that from inside of where we are now, trying to get what our full selves are looking at in that moment. But it's there. And it just makes sense to me that that would be how you would keep people from looking less at this moment, from trying less hard here, trying less hard in getting their will on what goes on in a place. How you would do that is by making it boring. And that's seems to be the authoritarians' constant attack is trying to create conformity, trying to make things the same, trying to make everyone feel like individuality is insufficient. Individuality is the thing that makes things problematic. Anytime you're trying to be yourself, trying to express your personality, you're being a problem. And this is put into place by those that want our perception to be away from here. They want our perception to just be like, who cares about that one? You know, I'm hoping that's making sense. At any rate, um, I'm going to do one more intermission, and then I'm going to talk a little bit more about dream platforms. Then we're probably going to call it a night. Be back in just a moment. Okay. Oh, um, don't think I'll open that last beer after all. So, anyways, dream platforms. I believe that is where we are at now. They are a place where you can go in between lives, is what you're essentially trying to create with the dream platform. But what this is a place where once you have achieved lucid dreams on a regular basis, and you can do things you're like Black Union Griffin was talking about with the dream incubation, it is a place that you should be aiming to go to at the beginning of your dreams. And the more often you repeat this process, the stronger your dream platform becomes. I typically would recommend starting at this with the S1 sigil, like I mentioned, because we have an unlimited resources there to create new astral space, which one can claim as their own. And you're essentially limited by your imagination. Um, Max mentioned last time I mentioned this. Starting to stutter, starting to have trouble speaking a little bit. Even I've only had two of them, but clearly I need to slow down with that. So, what was I trying to say? I was trying to say that um, I mentioned this before, and Max got quite excited. My dream platform is actually something that I had renovated by one of the spirits of the Goetia, King Paimon, and I forget what my point was there. This is, except for that, this is something that can be shaped and altered. Um, the dream platform is something that can be evolved over time. And once we have the dream platform, if we already have our dream staff, it is a place to put the physical object of the or the energetic equivalent of the material object in to create an area of to help create that area of etheric space in one's dream platform. And this helps once again create that bringing closer between the material and the astral planes. But anyways, I think we're gonna go ahead and call it here for the night. It's been a great night. Hail King Paimon. Indeed. He was a great it was a great help. He actually helped me realize that my dream platform didn't need to be stuck in one particular moment in space. It could be something that could be moved and travel rather than just being in one space. My dream platform is essentially it's a yurt and there's a fire in the middle and I'm sitting there because it's a moment outside of time even. And my dog is to my left and I've got a pipe in my right hand and my stick is there beside me as well to my right. But when I look up, there's no roof, and I can see the, I guess, sacred geometry. That's what you would call it. And up above that, there's different levels of beings, but eventually it leads to the all thing, the swirly, The great spin, the big spin. Anyways, um, and in that, like I said, he helped me understand that it doesn't need to move, or it can move. It doesn't need to move because that was actually was an interesting slip of the tongue because there's something in that, right? It doesn't need to move to go places. So we find that anyways, my brain's starting to do that thing that it does sometimes when I've been drinking. So let me just cut that off right there. Right. Um, the dream platform doesn't need to move to go to different locations, just like we don't need to when we teleport in our dreams. We're not actually moving. And that's part of the thing I wanted to get into when we was talking about flying in your dreams is after a while, once we learn to stand on those threads that I was talking about, those levels that are holding us up, those are the things that we can use to open up that moment when we decide we just want to go to a realm that we know. When we're creating the door. Yeah. Okay. So if you decide, right, you've made it to the astral or you're in your own mental plane and you're aware that you were dreaming, when we create the door to go to the next place, that's what we're using is that thread that we're standing on when we're in flight, that moment of catch, that flow, that thing that Mark Warden Mark um mentioned that he would get trapped in a flow of. That's what it is that we're bending and shaping into a doorway. And when we want to teleport, well, all we really need to do is feel that thread, that thing that you're gliding on, get a hold of it and open that. When you open it, you're getting it into that same moment as the ants one sigil, that space on the edge of the nothing by opening that thread. And on the other side, you can go to anywhere that you were trying to get to. And this includes, I mean, I keep uh, implying going to other astral realms, but this isn't the only option. This is also how you can go to other places, etheric equivalents, the etheric overlap between physical locations by getting into that thread, right? You're up there floating when you're levitating, that solid bit that you're flowing on. You just want to get a hold of that and open it. It'll open right up. And we can do this, of course, with just imagining a door. And for most places, that's you can get there. But when you're creating a door, even when you're grabbing that and creating a looping portal, these are all one step removed and easier to block. So if you really want to get past all this stuff, that is the most direct route. It's literally just Opening up the thread. What? Uh, I don't know what you're saying, man. Consensus reality. Yes, indeed. Yeah, maybe. Heller, I do always free astrology roasting review. Yeah. Okay, well, what are you trying to say? I don't understand. Heller, I do always free astrology roasting reviews and psychic vision practice. Does so catch me outside and get them sometime. Oh, you're trying to sell something. Yeah, no. I'm sorry, but I can't have that. Yeah, Bill. Still, man, I can't have. Well, I don't mean to assume your gender, but all right. Thank you, love. Yeah, that was. Sorry about that. So, um, yeah. Let's see. What else? What else? Let me. I don't want to end it with my head all fuzzy. At least let me get my head clear before we call it for the night. Psychic Dashton the Vampire Slayer. Wow, that's quite the name. Well, anyways, right. Now I suppose is the point where we open up the floor to questions, comments about any of the topics, anything I haven't covered that you would like clarification on. Other questions about dreams. Dream journals, by the way, are a great thing. Yeah, everyone was very chatty tonight, which is awesome. That is very much part of what I want to do is create a community space for people to just, because, well, even like the S1 sigil, right? Society of One. A lot of us are solitary practitioners. A lot of I mean, I know that's who I draw, you know. I'm very aware that's who I draw is people that are solitary practitioners, often people that are a bit isolated, because that's kind of who I am, right? That's who birds of a feather. And so that's like, society of one. That's but that's who I'm trying to help provide community for, you know? I mean, I've been in some covens. I've ran small coveny type things even in this lifetime, and it's just easier. Okay, what a dream platform is. Absolutely. A dream platform. Um, and again, I think the best thing to anchor it to is your personal sigil, but you can even help it be, you can model it after anything you want when you start. Okay, so getting confusing already, I imagine. Okay, a dream platform is an astral space that is controlled by you. It is designated as your created space. Um, how we can create one is simply by declaring an area yours and generating space. The easiest way to do this is by using the S1 sigil, meditating on the S1 sigil, and then visualizing yourself creating space. If this is something that just kind of happened, it's like if it's just visualization that first time, that's okay. It is the declaration of intent that matters to essentially stake your claim on new reality, a new space. This is an area that is yours. It's kind of like how we've been talking tonight about how you have your inner mental realm. This is your astral realm. It's a space where things conform to your will. And on this platform, the idea is to create a space that you go to from night to night. You can visualize it however you want. You can make it look exactly like your room. I know someone who it's their farm that they grew up on, and they've got like generation upon generation growing up on this same farm. They're like, I don't think they even know how many generations back. And they just, whenever they go to sleep, they go there first. And that's how we strengthen the dream platform, is by intentionally going there. Black Unigriffin mentioned the idea of dream incubation and dream scripting. This is a great place to start with the dream scripting. Is simply script writing out that I will go to my tower, my castle. For me, it's like a yurt kind of place. There's a fire in the middle, and there's like some stuff on the walls that changes. But the big part is that my pipes right here, my flutes right here, my dog's right here, and my dream staff is over in this hand. And there's a fire in front of me. And then when I look up, I can see all the way up to the all thing. And it eventually became more pyramid like and can move now. And everything outside of that yurt changes depending on where I am. Because, like I said, King Paimon essentially pimped my ride. Made me understand that not only that it could move, but more importantly, like I realized tonight, that it doesn't need to move to change its location. So, yeah, you can script your destination to wherever you want, but if you script it back to your same astral platform over and over again, then you're creating cohesion, you're creating momentum, you're creating repetition of this place, and that strengthens that image. And then you have somewhere that is your space. And the part of the point of this is that once you have this dream platform or astral temple, as it's been called in some other practices, you have a point where you can do magic from. You have a point where once you do eventually lose the physical body you're currently in, you have somewhere to go that is independent of any god. When you have don't have this body as an anchor point. You have a place to go. And from there, you can choose what to do next. Yeah. You can have a little more control over how and when you get reincarnated and even where. You go up to the S1 sigil more fully and get the heck out of here, go to a different reality if you wanted to. Yes, that's exactly this where this should begin. If you have a place you've already created like that, that would be a perfect place to start. Go up to the S1 sigil and build it there, or simply build it in your own astral space. You don't have to use the S1 sigil. Awesome. Hypnotic induction. You script wherever you want to go. The most popular destination is Hogwarts, hence the easiest. Everyone goes there. Yeah, see that I'm talking about that repetition. Okay, put that over here so I don't drink it. Awesome. Okay. Anyways, that food is inside is really calling my name at this point, and quite frankly, I really want a regular cigarette by now. Yeah, exactly. You can very much use your dream platform as a place to open up different aspects of reality. This is a place where you can do spell work. When I actually brought the dream step, stop coughing. When I introduced the dream staff, when I introduced the dream staff to the Sorcerers Guild, I recommend them creating it on their dream platforms if they already had one. And I forget what my point was there. Except for that, it becomes, yeah, I'm okay. I smoke too many cigarettes and different things. Okay, so um, yeah, the dream platform can be. That's where I actually had people going to connect their dream staffs when we had that project going a couple of years ago, and that is still something that can be ongoing. Just because the main push was a few years ago. If any of you decide you want to follow that path, it can be. Um, it's still there. Been lots of repetition on it from a couple of years ago. It's not the most beaten path, but there are people that have went over that path, and they're members of the horde that have done everything they can to facilitate that for you. And a lot of this can be achieved simply by going to the S1 sigil in the first place, which can be done by meditating on it or visualizing it in your dream. Visualizing it visualizing it as you fall asleep. Doing the dream scripting of going to the S1 sigil, if you will. Okay, so um, let's see. What else did I want to say about the dream platform while we're on the subject? So yeah, it's created astral space that is altered by you to be stated as your space. And part of the point of it is to have somewhere you can go during your dreams and come back to, and possibly even store dream memories on. And even if you manage to get a hold of one, actual astral objects, which I also then recommend having something to represent them on the physical plane as well, just to really hold that etheric qualities. But, anyways, that's a completely different subject, and I'm not ready to continue on with that tonight. Um, right. I think I've said as much as I can on that for the moment. Yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead and call it at this point. I think astral objects. Yes. Like I said, we're not. I don't want to get into that tonight, but there are astral objects that are things that are essentially on the edge of the etheric plane. They're like right there on the edge of the gap. But we can talk about that another time. I feel like I'm not ready to switch gears that far tonight. Yeah, I certainly don't want to panic during a lucid dream or an astral projection. Um. Anyways, like I said, there is uh there is some chicken in the house that is calling my name at this point, and I could really use an actual cigarette. So I'm gonna go ahead and call it at this point. It's been great hanging out with all of you. Um, yeah, bright blessings and an interesting fate. This has been Sorcerer Tal.